Hey guys, it's Archie, and this is my first official YouTube video. Now, the painting that you see on the screen right now is one of my very first paintings, and I've definitely improved a lot since then. And these are some of the paintings that I made recently. So in today's video, I'm going to be teaching you guys every single tip that I know to make a good painting. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so me personally, I love the Artist Loft canvases, but any canvas will do. I'm only going to be using 4 colors today just to make it simple for you guys. So the first thing that I do with all of my paintings is that I start out with a wash. I'm just putting a paper towel down because it does get a little messy sometimes. All a wash really is just watered down paint used as an underpainting. Me personally, I like to use brown, but you could really use any color, like red or pink or blue, it could be really anything. So when using a wash, you're able to cover all of the white spots on the canvas to make sure there's no little white holes peeking through. It's more of an art style preference, but I like the fact that you're able to see the wash even when you're completely done with the painting. And lastly, the wash does help me with my sketch, which I will explain in a second. And yeah, the paint gets absolutely everywhere, so just be careful with it. And your canvas should look something like this. So since the entire background is darker, I'm actually able to draw on this with a white charcoal pencil. And the really nice thing about these is that the paint doesn't smear the charcoal, so when you paint over it, it just completely disappears. So I decided to paint a boat today for my dad. I am going to speed this part of the video just a little bit, but if you guys would like a full video on how to properly draw proportions, then just let me know down in the comments. And while you're there, you might as well just subscribe. It really motivates me to make more videos like these. Alright, so now I'm just prepping my colors to paint the sky. From the reference, you can see it's a very subtle grayish blue. I could literally also make a video entirely just on color matching, so let me know in the comments if you want that. Also, by adding water to your paint, it makes it so much easier to spread. You'll notice that I'm moving my paintbrush back and forth very briefly. I'm not really tensing up too much. Another thing that I see all the time is that people use a small brush for the background. You want to make sure it's big, it's wide, and you can get a bunch of areas in fewer strokes. And another big habit for me is that I spend so much time in all the small details when they really don't even matter. Like if I were to try to get every single detail, one piece would probably just take me a few weeks or up to a month. And the painting that I'm doing now only took a day or two. And not to mention, doing every single detail is so draining, and that's where a lot of my art block came from. Alright, so next I'm adding white just so I can see the sketch a little better. Again, this part of the process shouldn't take you very long since you're just blocking in the main colors. It really doesn't matter too much which colors you're using. Like for example, the engines in the back of the boat are supposed to be gray, but I'm just going in with straight white paint. You can see for the highlights, I'm going with a very bright white, and for the shadows, I'm using a very dark gray. I really only focus on the highlights and the shadows, and then as we move further along, I will start adding midtones. I decided to take my bird out, just to hang out with me while I'm painting, but I soon regretted this. You're probably thinking to yourself, aw, taking the bird out is so peaceful and relaxing, but you're wrong. Alright, I had to put him away, he was way too distracting. Anyways, I decided to go ahead and start adding some midtones to the water, just to get a general shape for the waves, just 2 colors for now. Again, just being very carefree and fluid with your brush strokes. Also guys, don't forget to paint your edges. Alright, so the water was looking a little too bland, so I went ahead with a lighter color of blue and just started adding some highlights. The waves still looked a bit dull to me, so I went ahead and added a darker color. And I'm not even pressing hard with my brush, just do it very softly. By adding all of these different colors in the waves, it just makes it so much more interesting to look at. Alright, so I went ahead with a smaller brush and started using some white paint to give the effect that the waves are crashing up against the boat. And I went ahead and did the same thing to the back just to give the effect that there's a current. If you're having trouble getting the color right on your painting, no worries. What I do is that I blur both images so I can see what colors are missing. And you can use this technique by using a photo editor, or you can just blur your eyes, which is what I do. Next up, I'm going to be adding the shadow for the boat, which is going to be the darkest color for the water. And I blend these colors by using whatever colors I have left for my midtones, and I use that to blend my shadows. Now that I see that the water looks good enough for now, I decided to go ahead and work on the sky. I'm still using the same technique from earlier, but I'm just using this with more paint. I decided just to paint right over my boat painting for now, just so the sky looks a bit more flush. If you try and go around every single piece of metal, there's just going to be a brown outline around all of it, so I just thought it would be easier just to paint over it. You're pretty much just doing the same process over and over again. By adding many different layers of color, it just gives the image a bunch more definition. And you probably remember from earlier that I covered the engines entirely with white paint. As you can see, I left the highlights with the white paint that I used earlier, and I added the shadows with a dark gray. A good way to think about it is digital art, for example. If you were to look at one individual layer, it would not look done or complete at all, but once you put all of the layers on, it looks like a complete painting. So this is usually the time where I start rendering my painting. I'm just going in with a detail brush just so I can see the metal bars a bit clearer. If the paint's already dry and you want to fix a mistake, I just take my background color and start adding it in to cover the spots. I don't really have too much I have to say for this part of the video, so I'm just going to speed this part up and you guys can see how I detail. Depending on how much detail you want to add or not, it's all completely up to you. I thought the background was a bit boring, so I went ahead and I grabbed some white paint to make some clouds. Guys, it's important to remember with art, you can literally make anything. You don't have to follow a reference exactly. If you think something needs to be added or changed, then go right ahead and do it. Again, I'm just using my white paint just to show that the water is a bit reflective. So this is something that I use and it's called a glaze. Pretty much all it is that it makes the paint a bit more transparent, so if you want to change a tone of a color but still keep the contrasting values, you can do that. I noticed that the shadows in the back of the boat were a bit off, so I decided to use a blue glaze. I just added a little bit of blue just because I wanted to change the tone slightly. And I just wipe off the extra paint if you put too much on your brush. Although it's very minimal because I used more glaze than paint, it just gives a little hint of blue. I did the same thing with the main body of the boat because it definitely looked a bit grey to me. And just like that, I'm all done. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions, I will answer to all of them. I also have a Discord server that I will link in the description. And with all that being said, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.